There was nobody bigger in television than Michael Landon.
He was the loving Pa of the Prairie.
It was a show where your whole family could sit down and watch. It would help bring families closer together.
The angel on a highway to heaven.
Who do you work for? God.
And a heartthrob on the Ponderosa.
Dadgummit!
Michael Landon, a TV pioneer helping others by telling touching human stories that often reflected his own struggles and pain.
Things that happened to Michael often in his private life wound up on the screen.
Childhood trauma.
He grew up a boy without a...
Failed marriages.
I looked at this man, I go, oh my God, this is probably one of the most extraordinarily handsome men I've ever seen in my life. We had just developed this incredible friendship, and one thing led to another.
Struggles with a good boy, bad boy image.
A lot of people don't think kindly to men who have a lot of wives.
In this hour, a talent whose final tragedy and courage captivated the country.
Stricken with cancer, out of nowhere.
Life has been good to me.
A TV legend whose story you may not have known. Michael Landon.
This is Headliners and Legends with Matt Lauer.
Hi, everybody, and welcome to Headliners and Legends. When he died at only 54 years old, Michael Landon had been a major television presence for more than 3 decades. In an age of hip and cool, he made old-fashioned virtues of home and family his personal TV trademark, and he did it in one long-running series after another. Landon connected with TV viewers in a way that confounded cynical network bosses. And if his personal life was inconsistent with what he preached on screen, his courage certainly was not.
In 1959, Michael Landon rode across television screens into American homes and history, blazing a trail which led from the birth of color television to being star, writer, director, and producer of his own highly successful shows. Landon's work helped define family values. His personal life, however, defined family realities. Through the programs he created, Michael Landon revealed much about his own life, including his mother's staged suicide attempts and his own struggle with the trauma of bedwetting. His biggest role often seemed to be his own life, especially at the end, when sharing his battle against cancer with the American public. In the early 30s, as the country emerges from the Great Depression, dream factories from New York to Hollywood are doing well, keeping the unemployed hopeful and the hopeful employed. Among those aiming for stardom are Peggy O'Neill and Eli Horowitz. They meet in New York, where she dances in a nightclub and he works in radio. They share a love for show business, but little else. She's Irish Catholic, he's a Russian Jew. When they marry in 1932, it is not for love. She's looking for independence, and he likes her blonde good looks. A first child, Evelyn, is born in 1933. 3 years later, on Halloween night, Peggy gives birth to a boy she names Eugene Horowitz. When Eugene is 4, the young couple decides to move to New Jersey to raise their family. But their vision of the American dream won't last. Although Eugene's father has made show business his career, his work is confined to the fringes. In Collingswood, he takes a job as manager of a chain of movie theaters.
Michael's father was like Michael. He was a dreamer. He dreamt of wonderful things that he wanted to do in life, and unfortunately never came to pass. And so his mother ridiculed him for being that way.
I think he worked harder, more hours than probably he had to, just so he wouldn't have to contend with the arguments at home with his wife.
Eugene yearns for his father's attention.
You never see his father. His father would be busy with the theater. He grew up a boy sort of without moorings, without a foundation. His father was too busy for him.
Eugene's unhappiness is compounded by his embarrassing problem with nighttime bedwetting. His mother's answer is to hang the soiled sheets outside his bedroom window, thinking humiliation will cure him. It only serves to alienate Eugene from his mother.
My whole life was spent running from school to beat everybody home so I could whip that sheet in out of the window.
Michael did not have a connection to his mother. And I recall him just saying, you know, I was so miserable with her. I mean, she did not make my life happy at all.
Peggy believes she has sacrificed stardom for a loveless marriage. She expresses her unhappiness with several staged suicide attempts, typically putting her head in an unlit oven, more a cry for attention than an attempt on her life.
She had become a religious fanatic and intolerant of other religions. And I heard her actually verbally blast her husband and telling the children, you really shouldn't be with him or listen to him too much because he's Jewish, and that's not what you want or want to be.
In high school, the strain of life at home shows as Eugene goes from a shy, introverted, straight-A student to a class cut-up and rebel. His grades plummet. His popularity soars.
I was voted class president at one given point, but the faculty got together with me and decided for me that I should really turn that down.
In 1952, Eugene discovers his chance to escape his stressful home life, as well as the confines of Collingswood. It happens during gym class.
There was a javelin around, and he picked it up and just was throwing it around. And it seemed to go well, and he was encouraged, hey, why don't you keep that going? Take it home with you.
In 1954, he sets a national javelin record. It stirs Olympic dreams and will be his ticket to college. In the fall of 1954, he arrives at the University of Southern California.
They offer me a scholarship, so I go in, I sit down, I'm in the office, I'm waiting for the coach, Jess Mortensen, I think was the coach at the time, and he walks out in the office, and he's looking for King Kong sitting out there, right? And here's Pencil Neck, he's sitting there. I have very long hair, because I thought, because I was so small, I really had a thing about that Samson, that the longer my hair got, the stronger I got. I couldn't explain why else I could throw it so far, being so tiny. And the guys ended up holding me down, they shaved my head, and by golly, I went out to throw and I couldn't do it.
The result, his average javelin throw drops by 50 feet. He then sustains a shoulder injury that ends his Olympic dreams. Eugene drops out of college with no plans for the future. Opportunity knocks when a friend asks Eugene to be his partner for an upcoming audition at Warner Brothers. His friend doesn't get the job, but Eugene is asked to join Warner's talent school, where it is not all work and no play.
Michael had several girlfriends dating here and there, but his first serious girlfriend was a girl who we wound up marrying, and that was Dodie.
Dodie Frazier is a 26-year-old widow with a young son, Mark.
And I sauntered up to him, and I said, hi, who are you? And he kind of looked at me when I'm Gene. I said, well, I'm Mark.
Experience at Warner teaches him that names like Eugene Horowitz do not appear in lights as readily as snappy names.
They were going through the phone book looking for names, and they put together Michael and Landon. And that became, like, Mother started calling him Michael. I thought he was Gene. And I'm sitting down, Michael, call him Michael.
Eugene, now Michael, announces plans to marry Dodie. His mother objects. He is only 20. But Michael, in love with both Dodie and the idea of instant fatherhood, perseveres.
I think he dug the package deal. He always says he was crazy about me when I was a kid. And at 18 years old, to the extent that he knew what love was, he was crazy about Mom.
Dodie and Michael marry on March 11th, 1956, but money is an issue.
When he was going around to the studios trying to get an audition, and he did an audition, and he was so good in it that all the talent people around the studios heard about a young kid named Michael Landon.
In time, Michael wins several small roles on television. He begins to earn some money acting.
What's the first thing you bought? It's always interesting when people start out and you make success. You get a little bread. Everything you wanted to buy, I went out and bought a telescope.
Did you?
Yeah, I've always wanted a telescope.
I was not far off. I bought a salami.
It's the same shape and everything.
Yeah.
Except you don't see much through a salami.
Coming up, how Michael becomes a household name and how it affects his marriage. Married at the tender age of 20 and with a growing family, Michael Landon's personal life appears happy. Fatherhood gives him a sense of purpose, and he and Dodie adopt a son, Josh. Fame and fortune continue to elude him.
He wanted to be a movie star and make money. He wanted to do quality stuff. But, you know, the importance is in acting, you're either a star or you're like nobody, or a character actor, and he just wasn't, he wasn't character actor material. He was leading man type.
Michael's big break will call on him to be both a leading man and a character actor. Michael is chosen for the role after the producer determines another young actor, Jack Nicholson, is wrong for the part. In the mid-1950s, teenage horror films are big moneymakers. They also offer a young actor the opportunity to become popular with the teenage audience, which in turn may lead to other roles.
I was a Teenage Rose, was one of the coolest ones.
He blew up. Don't bring that sticker up. He got, I want to talk about it. Don't bring that show up. He didn't like it at all, apparently.
The road to the Ponderosa begins in 1957 when Michael is cast in the pilot of The Restless Gun. Although Michael's character dies in the episode, his luck does not. The show's popularity results in David Dortort being invited by NBC to take them into primetime.
And I said, well, I would like to do a Western, but this time I felt it'd be my kind of Western, I wanted to do the story of a family, which had never been done in a Western before.
Thus is born Bonanza, starring four unknowns, Lorne Greene, Pernell Roberts, Dan Blocker, and Michael Landon as the impetuous little Joe. At the time, there are 39 Westerns on television. To set it apart, David Dortort suggests the series be shot entirely in color. NBC is against it.
Oh, that's preposterous. Why is it preposterous? It costs so much more to shoot in color than in black and white.
He argues that the cast of unknowns helps offset the cost of production.
The following program is brought to you in living color on NBC.
Premieres on September 12, 1959. Though fresh and entertaining, Bonanza still has to battle for ratings.
It was kind of rocky the first couple of years because they were opposite Perry Mason.
Perry Mason is CBS's #1 hit show in its third year.
Mom would sometimes go up and watch Perry Mason instead, yeah. She was hooked on it.
Color TV sets sell, and so does Bonanza. Ratings improve. But Michael isn't just learning how to act.
Michael and with Dan and with Lorne, they were all really like relatives.
Dadgummit! I'm here to tell you.
He took a real, genuine, affectionate liking to Dan Blocker. He loved Dan Blocker as a human being and as a man and as a big brother.
The seasoned Canadian actor Lorne Greene is more than a friend to Michael when he needs one.
Lorne Greene, instead of telling him not to despair, that you tried your best, went beyond that, put his arm around him, hugged him, and Michael accepted the embrace. He found his father. He finally found his father on the show. Very quickly, the fan mail began to come in, and he got, by all means, he got the greatest number of letters, and naturally from young girls who adored him.
While Michael never strays, his popularity with women ultimately affects his marriage. In 1962, Dodie and Michael decide to divorce.
He married her when he was 18. Who knows what love is at 18? And the changes you go through from 18 to 26. Mom was extremely hurt by it. Even though she wasn't, it didn't seem like they were really communicating that much the last couple of years of their marriage. They were growing apart. That just happens.
Michael is not single for long. In 1961, he meets model Lynn No on the set of Bonanza. Lynn, like Dodie, comes complete with family. She has a daughter from a previous marriage. On January 12, 1961, Michael and Lynn elope to Mexico. Meanwhile, on screen, Michael also has romances and marriage proposals.
If he got engaged, you knew the girl was going to die. Because there was no way that the show was going to go on, he was going to get married.
You've watched the show for 6 years. I've been engaged 35 times. You watch. Every time the stage comes into town, a girl gets off alone. I run up and I say, you want to get married? And the minute I kiss her, she's dead.
Michael is hugely popular, but it's not enough. He wants to be more than a pretty face. He wants to write.
You see, Michael came into the show when he was, I think, 19 years old. He was ripe for the learning process. So when he said to me, would I read something he wrote? I said, of course I would.
After co-writing several early Bonanza scripts, Michael receives his first full writing credit in 1968 with A Dream to Dream.
So, okay, having done that, right, one day says to me, you know what, I would like to direct. And I said, well, I'm not totally surprised.
Michael's directorial debut comes the same year in an episode titled To Die in Darkness.
I asked Dan Blocker, what do you think of Dad as director? And Dad said, your dad's the best director I've ever worked with. And then I saw Dad working on the set. I knew what he was talking about.
All seems to be well in Michael's life when on May 13th, 1972, Dan Blocker, his co-star and closest friend, unexpectedly dies of a heart attack.
When Dan Blocker died, Michael was absolutely devastated. It took quite a while before he really could get out of the dumps on that one. He didn't know how to handle that. It was a big blow.
We used to ask him, how can you cry? And he said jokingly, he would always say, well, I can put a hair out of my nose and it hurts and I start to cry. But deep down, I know that when he had to cry, he thought about Dan.
Dan Blocker's death foretells the end of Bonanza. 6 months later, it is canceled. Michael knows what he wants next.
I gave him the title of Mr. Triple Threat, actor, writer, director. But he wanted that fourth title.
Coming up, image meets reality, the little-known story behind Little House on the Prairie. And Michael Landon is faced with the hard choice of being Michael Landon. With its cancellation in 1972, Bonanza is history, but Michael Landon is a household name. Aiming to capitalize on his appeal, Michael begins shopping around a treatment for a semi-autobiographical script called The Loneliest Runner, which addresses childhood bedwetting. But he cannot sell it. Soon, Michael receives a call from a producer with the rights to Laura Ingalls Wilder's books about pioneer life on the American Great Plains. Ed Friendly has spent 2 years developing Little House for television. In Michael Landon, he believes he has found the perfect star and entree to studio financing. After all, this is everybody's favorite little brother and cowboy, all grown up and ready for the keys to his own horse and ranch.
The arrangement was that Ed Friendly would be the producer and Michael would be the star of the show. But Ed Friendly was the man in charge. What he didn't reckon with was that Michael would not accept that.
Michael wants to be the producer with total control of the Little House scripts.
And why not? He's the star of the show. But this is now a power play. In effect, who chooses the scripts runs the show. What does the other guy do, So when Ed pointed that out, he said, well, what am I going to do? Michael, in effect, says, nothing. Who needs you around anyway?
While Friendly and NBC hammer out a settlement, Michael takes advantage of the time off to write and direct Love Story, a program that contains autobiographical material focusing on the childhood trauma of his mother's suicide attempts.
You don't care. Your own mother. And
It wasn't based on any personal experience at all, was it? That many people who write out of their own personal experiences.
Yes, I know someone very well in that scene.
Do you really?
Yes.
And that came out of something that...
Yeah. Don't delve too deeply.
Oh, I don't want... This is not psychoanalysis or anything.
Okay.
On March 30th, 1973, Little House on the Prairie airs as a movie of the week with the hope that it will be picked up as a series.
Little House was not really accepted at the start. We did the pilot and we screened it, and it got the highest rating in the screening that any picture had ever gotten at NBC.
Little House on the Prairie is picked up as a series. It premieres on September 11th, 1974. The show indelibly bears the stamp of its star, producer, writer, and director, Michael Landon.
In her books, he found a situation that he felt would be just right for him. In a way, it's the reverse of the Bonanza role, but yet very much the same relationship.
What I think he liked about Little House, it was a show where your whole family could sit down and watch. So I think he felt it was a time he could bring subject matters in that would help bring families closer together.
And bring them together, it did. 15 years after striking TV gold with Bonanza, Michael Landon has another hit. Little House surprises those critics and network brass who think sex and violence must be the key ingredients of any successful television drama.
Why does Mr. Anders hate him so much? Because he's an Indian, I guess. Well, that doesn't make sense. He's a good man. He saved Pa.
Despite television being the bread and butter of the Landon family, sitting around watching television is not allowed.
Getting into a pattern of letting a whole family just spend their lives sitting there staring and never picking up a book and never talking to each other.
Do you let your kids watch television during weeknights?
No.
That is, except Dad's show.
My kids stay up to watch the show.
Do they like it?
That isn't the point, John. The show is on from 8 to 9.
Right.
My kids have their choice. They can stay up till 9. They can have a severe beating at 8 and go to bed.
By this time, Michael and Lynn have 4 children of their own, plus Lynn's daughter from a previous marriage and Michael's 2 sons from his marriage to Dodie.
To him, it didn't matter whether they were his own children or stepchildren or adopted children.
He was the father in the series. But as much as he was the father on the screen, he was the father off the screen on the set, making sure that Melissa and all of them were in school.
Well, what is the relationship with you and the youngsters on the show?
I can't stand them. It took me a long time to like my own kids. I'm not thrilled with her at all. They're terrific. The kids are terrific.
Michael Landon is elated. He has delivered a show about harmony within the home and community. Harmony within his own home is another story. Coming up, more success and another marriage. Michael Landon meets the love of his life.